So, with the wedding season and also, of course, we've got the royal wedding with Harry and Meghan just weeks away now. Meghan Markle reportedly planning to make a speech at the reception. And that means that sort of just generally we're thinking about wedding readings and speeches. It's probably the thing, frankly, that we worry most about on the big day. And I never got over the shock of deciding, yes, I will do a speech at my own wedding. And then my husband ducked out and didn't do one for me. So I don't feel bad about it in any way. Heidi Ellert-McDermott, though, that's who my husband needed to speak to. She's a wedding speech expert and founder of the speech writing service, Speechy. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning to you. So how did this come about?
Well, basically, I was looking for an idea to set up my own business after having had 2 children and wanting to work around their schedules a bit more. And I was trying to think of what I could do that would be of benefit to other people. And after having been a BBC script writer for a number of years, I knew I could write good stories. And after having given my own wedding speech...
Oh, you did a speech as well? Oh, we both did speeches.
Absolutely, girl power.
Hey.
And I really enjoyed it. And it seemed like everyone else did as well. So I thought I can try and help other people in need. I'd been to a number of weddings over the previous summer where the speeches had been verging
dire
on the terrible side.
This is the thing, and the trouble is, I mean, I can still, I get hot and cold flushes thinking about it. Think about one wedding I went to, and we went over to Northern Ireland to do it. You know, so people travel a long way, and it was the best man, and he stood up to give this speech, and it made sense to him and the groom, but it was full of, I guess, what were in stories for them. But he didn't explain it. There was no sort of anecdote. It was just, oh, do you remember when? And then it's sort of the goose. Do you remember the goose? Do you remember the goose? And that was it. And it's like it made absolutely no sense to anybody else. There was nobody laughing. It was the most excruciating experience for people sitting around, let alone for the best man. It is a classic mistake. Is that a classic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the 2 that I remember as being particularly awful were best men as well. I mean, they've obviously got a lot of pressure on them.
It's a biggie, isn't it?
Yeah, there was one best man that we were witness to, unfortunately, and he literally went on for 45 minutes, and people were heckling him, and he was still continuing on, and he started just talking about himself at the end, and he didn't have any notes, which was worrying because there didn't seem to be a conclusion coming.
No. Maybe he was looking for the conclusion and couldn't find it.
Yes, maybe.
That's what you need to know where you're going with this, don't you?
And then there was another one where it was a best man double act, and they'd obviously thought about it because there was props and there was outfits and there was a vague theme, but I don't know whether the alcohol had an effect, but it just ended up being really crude. A bit disorganised, and eventually the mother of the bride asked them to stop.
Really? Oh no! And that's the thing, is then what do you remember about that wedding?
Yes.
That's what you remember.
Yes, I know. Brides, I think we all have that tendency to sort of go on Pinterest, look at the Etsy table decorations, worry about the flowers, but we forget what people talk about is the speeches.
Yeah.
And we just sometimes leave them to the blokes without actually getting involved.
Well, can I just flag up at this point? You need to confess, because I would suggest, call me old-fashioned, that you are a bit of a control freak, Heidi. Now, tell me about, you wrote your speech for your wedding.
Yes.
Is it true that you actually also wrote your husband's speech for your wedding?
Okay, busted. Yes, I did. Yes, I did to help him slightly.
You did more than help him. Just how much of that speech did you write, Heidi?
Well, I left sections where he could fill in the blanks. So I did want him to come up with a few genuine, heartfelt compliments.
For you?
Yes.
Within the speech that you wrote?
Yes, but weirdly, they ended up being about really random things, about how I was a spontaneous girl, and sometimes I'd go to the supermarket wanting a chicken roast and I'd come back with a tin of tomato soup. And it didn't really go anywhere, that compliment, but yes, I wish I hadn't left him any blanks, to be honest.
So you weren't even happy with the 2 lines you allowed him to do.
Exactly.
Did he not at any point suggest that this wasn't quite your role in the proceedings?
No, he was very grateful. As I find a lot of grooms that call Speechy are, you know, everyone wants to do a good job. everyone knows that, they've got things to say, they've got compliments to give, but they just don't know how to say them very well. And there's a lot of people out there that just resort to cliches. They end up talking about soulmates and love of my life. And actually what you've got to do is sort of prove as opposed to tell.
Okay. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more. Is this ringing a bell for you? Did you go to the best / worst wedding of your entire life and it all came down to the speeches? Any tales of the best speech you ever heard at a wedding? Why was it so good? Or indeed the worst speech? I think there probably must be a few stories of the worst speech you ever heard at a wedding. Maybe it was you giving it. No, you're just reliving the nightmare. Then you can get in touch and tell me all about it. I will stroke your forehead gently and feed you a grape. You can text gloss in your tale then to 81333. We're talking about this then because here's a nice twist. Heidi can actually write your wedding speech for you. She's a founder of the speech writing service Speechy, and it's gathering momentum for sure. But what I'm thinking though, Heidi, is that you're writing speeches for people you don't know. It's one thing if you're writing it about yourself or your partner or your family member, but you're writing about people you may not ever meet. You don't know them, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes they're on the other side of the world. Like last night I was speaking to a father of the bride who was from California. And so it's also trying to get that tone of voice and just the pace of how he speaks. And, it comes back to sort of my journalistic training and just asking the right questions. And
what are the right questions? And you start off with an email or somebody does call you?
Yeah, there is a questionnaire people fill in first of all, and then we have an in-depth chat. But I think that question stage is something that people, if they're writing their own speech themselves, they need to do themselves as well. You just need to have a real brainstorm about the people that you're talking about. And
the people you're talking to as well, because it might be, it's one thing if you're having this chat, at the bar or in a pub or something, but
absolutely be conscious of your audience.
Exactly.
You need, as you say, you need to think about our children there, our elderly people there, and as you say, be conscious of not telling these in-jokes. It's got to be inclusive. So that's part of this first stage of my writing, is just finding out as much as I can about the people and asking the questions. A lot of the questions don't elicit great content, but it can be. It's the questions such as, what are their bad habits? What do you argue about? That sometimes gives me the best content to work with, because you want to make the speeches unique. You don't want them cliched.
Yes. This could only be about this person. That's what you want,
exactly.
Isn't it? This is, you've really captured that person.
The essence of that person. So you don't want to pretend that all brides are princesses and wonderful and just beautiful. You want to get the sense that they're a bit gobby and they're obsessed with fake tan, whatever it is.
Or they're clumsy like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to get that out of the people first of all.
And are they shocked, though, at those are the questions that are coming? Presumably then they're not anticipating that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we give time to people to fill in the questionnaire, because rather than just speaking to them on the phone, first of all, we started off doing that, and we'd ask grooms, what do you love about your fiancé? And to be honest, they were stumped. They'd be saying things like, she's funny, she's nice, she's generous. And I was like, all right, we're going to have to work a bit harder with this. Yeah. So having a questionnaire, it gets people thinking a bit more. And once you know the questions, coming back to it a few days later, things start popping in your head once you start thinking about your speech.
So you start writing, and then what is a good length for a speech that is going to be interesting? It's going to have enough content, but it's also snappy.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want your speech to come in under 10 minutes.
Under 10 minutes, people. Yes, I know. You need to start again. If you're on page 7, you need to start again.
I mean, with any speech, I'd say write your first draft and then give yourself...
Throw it away.
Yes, that's one strategy, yes.
In the bin.
I do that myself, yeah. And then give yourself the challenge of trying to edit it to half the length it was.
Oh, really?
And then guaranteed it will be a lot better as a result. Jokes, work much better if they're punchier stories.
Keep it snappy.
Keep it snappy, absolutely. Okay. So give yourself that challenge. You might not hit that, but with groom speeches, you're not wanting more than 1,300 words. Fathers of the bride, people are 900.
Writing this down. Hold on, they're writing this down. Wait a minute. Well, we need this. This is important stuff. So under 10 minutes, then try and edit it to half, and then presumably you can stretch a bit.
But you definitely.
And if it's the groom, it's how many words?
You don't want more than 1,300. Father of the bride, probably 900. But these are just guidelines. Obviously people have a bit more to work with, and as well, there's no harm with being shorter.
No,
there's absolutely no harm.
Short can be good.
Yeah, my mum gave a speech at my wedding, and it was literally.
Did you write that?
I didn't. I restrained myself from that one.
And how good was it? A quick?
It was literally a couple of minutes, but it did the job. It made people laugh, and it added a sentimental moment. So that was perfect.
Well done, Mum. You got away with it. Good for you, Mum. She approved. I know. She approved. So how many stages would you go through or versions, drafts of a speech would you give? Presumably at some point you've got to ping it across to them, or you read it out to them, or, you've got to get that. And then they say, that there's that moment, isn't it? I mean, if they're paying for this service, so they're going to, are they honest and say, well, that bit's great, that's not quite there.
I mean, that's definitely part of the service. So, when we speak to people, the next stage is coming up with a basic theme, what we think the story's going to be, how we're going to start it, hook people in, and what's the theme going to be. So we make sure we speak to people before we start the first draft about this is our vague idea, and if they're happy with that. Generally they go for that. And once we send them the first draft, it really depends on the person. Sometimes, obviously, winner, it's like they love it, they're crying with happiness, it's excellent.
How lovely feeling that is.
Those. But with other people, there is a bit more editing to be done, and that's absolutely fair enough. And
is there a Speechzilla? Like you have Bridezilla. Is there a Speechzilla where somebody goes 15 times? No, not quite there yet.
We've not had that yet. But there has been one person that I worked with, and at the offset, I said, I think this should actually be a poem. We gave him the first draft and he said, that's not for me. And so we started again, and that was fine. And it's just very personal as well. So
and but you get to have that little glimpse into these people's lives at a key moment in their lives, which is fantastic. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more. Just died in your arms. What you don't want to do is die on the spot as you give the speech of your life. It is wedding season. If you are the groom, if you're the bride, if it's your daughter or son that's getting married, whatever it is that you want to do a great speech. But you're not doing these every day unless you are Heidi, who in fact does that very thing. She's a wedding speech expert and founder of the speech writing service Speechy. Yes, if it all goes pear-shaped, turn to her. She'll write the whole thing for you. Now, there are sort of issues that you have to address. Tell me about the father-in-law who came to you for a speech and then made an admission that presumably could have floored you. Well,
yeah, I was working with a father of the groom, which seems to be a bit more common for fathers of the groom to give speeches on the continent. And I was asking him about what he thought of the bride, and he quite frankly admitted he didn't like her. So that was a challenge to get over.
You had to write a speech in her honour.
So I had to dig deep with him, and managed to get something out of him without exactly making things up. So, there's a few challenges involved.
You've got to tread carefully, and there's also as you said, you want it to be real. You don't want it to be about airy fairy things. So sometimes, we've all had ups and downs in life, but you also presumably have to touch on things in speeches whilst keeping the mood up. You have to touch on things that have been difficult in the past.
I mean, just within this month, we've done an uncle of the bride who was obviously standing in for his brother. So that was inevitably going to be an emotional speech. But the challenge there is to keep it joyful. The principle should be the same. It should be getting people laughing from the top. But that is inevitably going to be both important and emotional for the bride, and it's getting that tone right where you remember her father in a positive way.
You want him to be included. He's presumably had died, so you want him
exactly. So the way to do that is obviously to imagine how he would have been reacting within the wedding day. Would he have been diving into the sticky toffee pudding? Would he have been trying to show off his dance moves already?
Yes.
Whatever it is, everyone needs to remember him with a smile. So it's getting that right. And the other speech we've been working on this week is one father of the bride who was giving a speech about a daughter who for about 15 years of her life had suffered severe anorexia. So a lot of her childhood memories involved that. So again, the principle of not ignoring the truth, not brushing it aside, but also acknowledging the reality of her life whilst keeping it joyful and making sure, again, she's not brought back to anything sad, but she understands that her father has appreciated the struggle she's gone through, and what a happy time they are.
And here we
today.
are in this amazing, it's an acknowledgement, but and not putting it under the carpet, but not ending. And presumably you want some of the key parts of a speech at the beginning and the end. So you want to know the end. Don't be that man still talking to himself for 45 minutes in. And also have get him hooked day one, minute one, and hooked at the end.
Well,
nice,
that's it's the principles of old-fashioned storytelling, isn't it? It's like hooking people in from the beginning, and that's a common mistake people make, is starting with the thank yous. It's important, the thank yous. Everyone wants to be appreciated, but to be honest, the thank yous are really boring for everyone who doesn't get a mention. So start with the story. Start with the hook, and keep people entertained till the end through that.
Right. Hopefully that's given you loads of advice, help, tips, and you're writing it down as we speak. Inevitably, if it all goes pear-shaped, or you just think, I can't do this, it's okay, take a deep breath, be calm, and contact Heidi instead. There you go then. Heidi Ellert-McDermott, wedding speech expert and founder of the speech writing service Speechy. If people want to get in touch, they can do that via Heidi's website, which is Speechy. That's SPEECHY. Okay, speechy.co.uk. You say it. It's a lovely Scottish accent. You say it.
Speechy.co.uk.
Speechy. Go on again. And go on, try me again. Go on.
Speechy.co.uk.
Speechy. Down at the beachy. Right, speechy.co.uk is great, isn't it? Or you can contact her on the phone. It's 07971 225 245. How much time do you need to get a speech? You don't want somebody who says we're getting married next week, do you? I've been putting it off.
Ideally, we like the process of people filling in their questionnaire and us editing it, etc. We'd like a fortnight, but we can do emergency speeches when necessary, if we've got space in the diary.
You want more money? Thank you for that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. It is 07971 225 245 or speechy.co.uk. Thank you so much for coming in. It's a revelation, isn't it?
Oh, lovely speaking to you.
It's a revelation. It's really nice to hear all about it. There you go then. Experience it yourself. How did you get on when you wrote the speech of your life? Did you nail it? Are they still talking about it in the very best fashion ever since? Or was it something that you're still having hot and cold fever thinking about because it was such a disaster? In which case, what tips could you give to getting it right next time? Speechy.co.uk, or you can contact Heidi on the phone 07971 225 245, but try and get well ahead. Please don't attempt to leave it to the last second. If you do, though, she has got that emergency service. I know. It's like the gift that you never expected from me today, isn't it? You're very welcome.